Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to explain why a private road system, by that I mean without government funding or without the government building the roads, would be an efficient system and honestly probably be better than the current system we have. So I think as a general statement for why this sort of thing would work and be better is just the idea that if there's something that is demanded by consumers, demanded by a society, then that will be provided by the market, because when someone demands something, they're willing to pay for it, and when they're willing to pay for it, the market has a profit incentive in that sort of thing, so then they will generally build the road for them. And second, when you have a market building something, you see a lot more innovation in that thing because you're leaving the human mind free to build something how they want to build it, and that will ultimately lead to many different things being tried and ultimately will lead to more innovation than under a government system. So that is just the general principle that I apply to every sort of issue like this, where the question is, should government build it or should it be left to the market? Now, roads is actually a lot more difficult case when you get into the specifics, because not a lot of people imagine that the government could get out of the road building business and leave it to the market, because they don't necessarily understand how the profit incentive would work for people. However, just for examples of stuff, you can look to other European countries which have a lot more privatized road systems, and you see a lot more innovation in those fields in Europe. And yeah, in general, it still works. It's not as if they're not building roads in some of these places in Europe that have private roads. They are still being built, and they are honestly more efficient than a lot of the roads in America at the moment. So to begin with, I'm just going to explain a few cases of where roads would be built and how different things would be funded. So in general, the current road system, it's built by the government wherever the government feels that a road should be built, and it's funded by taxpayer dollars, which are taken from us by force, which we don't really have a choice in. Now, how would a private system work for highways, for example? Well, first of all, you would need someone to own this land that they can build a highway on. They would purchase this land from different people just to say, I'm going to build a highway on this land, and then they could rent it out, or they could do all that sort of stuff. They could just pay people money to buy some of this land just to build their highway on, rather than what the government does. It just uses force to take away that land through eminent domain and that sort of stuff, which they pay you just compensation, but it's the government deciding what just compensation is, so they generally don't do that. But yeah, so the private company would have to buy land to build their highway on, and ultimately they would fund all this by either having toll roads, which we actually have now, or they could do a similar thing to what a lot of free companies do on like the internet right now, like Facebook. They have ads on their website, and that's how they pay for stuff. Obviously, they do stuff with data collection too, but in general, ads are but the data is sold for ads, or that sort of general idea. So I think you could have these roads funded through toll roads and ads on the side of the road. So, and in general, that's honestly not even that's going to save you money too, because you're not having to pay these taxes for these roads. And yeah, ultimately it'd be a lot better than the current system, as you have the ability of entrepreneurs to innovate and try new things in that sense. So that is how highways would work. Second, roads through business areas. These are actually probably the easiest to understand. So first of all, you have someone who owns this section of land. You have that idea. Someone owns that section of land, and they want to create a business sector on it, or have businesses come there and set up shop and just do their thing, So now they're thinking, how could I be profitable with this? Well, I need someone to someone to have roads on this place so that people can get to these businesses. So they go to a road company, and then they will pay for the roads, and they'll pay this road company to build roads on this land. And ultimately, the road payments will be greater than the cost of the road for the road company. But however, this landowner still needs to make a profit somehow. So then these businesses will come onto this land because they see, oh, there's roads here. There's customers that can come here. This place is developing, so I'll build my business here. So then they'll obviously have to pay some sort of rent to the landowner because the landowner owns that land. But so they'll have to pay, instead of paying property taxes to the government, they'll pay directly for this land, owning this land, or they'll have to either buy this land or pay rent on this land. And this for the landowner will be higher than the cost of the road, since that they want to be able to pay for their road costs. So then once the business is on that land, then they begin to attract customers to help them pay for those fixed costs, like that rent that they're paying, or the cost of owning that land. And then they'll be able to produce and have a thriving business sector in that section where there are roads. And the roads aren't even the most complicated part of this section. Like, the roads are something that would necessarily be built because businesses and landowners want people to come to their land and businesses if they want to sell things to people. So then the next question would be, what about for homeowners? How would roads be built in neighborhoods and that sort of thing? So the question here would be simply the answer here would be just the idea that homeowners would create a contract with this road company when they purchase their home, where they say, no, we're going to pay for upkeep and maintenance on this road. And yeah, ultimately that would generally work pretty well because there's already contracts that come with just about everything that you do. So it would just be like, along with your water bill and electricity bill, there'd be like your road bill as well, because you have to pay the road company. Because you own a house that uses their roads to go places. So ultimately, that would be a good way to fund the road, and ultimately this would, in the ideal society, replace property taxes. And that's a lot better of a system because you're actually paying for what you're using. You're not paying for all this other shit that has nothing to do with what you're using. And also, this would get rid of like things like gasoline tax as well, which are used a lot in paying for roads, which would make your life so much cheaper because gasoline taxes are fucking stupid. Like, you have to use gas, and the government's just basically taking your money from something that you have to use, and so they're trying to take it in the most efficient way possible, and it's just fucking annoying, to be honest. But I don't have a car, so that doesn't really affect me as much. But for people who do, I get why you don't want to have to pay those sort of, or you wouldn't want to pay those sort of taxes, because it's stupid and disrespectful, because you need that fucking gas, and why should the government come in and make you pay extra for something that you need like that? But whatever. Now on to a different topic. What about like things like the rules of the road? How would those things be enforced? Well, these road companies, or whoever owns the road, doesn't want to have a lot of unsafe driving on their road. They don't want, because then people won't want to live on the road, people won't want to drive on the road. They won't be able to make as much of a profit, so they do want to have some sort of safety. So then they will create things like speed limits or rules of the road, all that sort of stuff. So then ultimately, by driving on their roads and not following these rules, you'd be violating their property rights. So that means the police have the ability to go in on these roads, and if someone is not following the rules, then they can fine them or do whatever, have them pay whatever compensation is necessary. So that would be how rules of the road are enforced, and then just the idea of driver's licensing. I think this is one place where the market has a lot of ability to improve the current system, because the current system is the fucking DMV, which I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of the fucking DMV, because that shit's just takes forever, and it's just very inefficient and stupid. So so a privatized sort of bunch of DMVs that are competing in the market would be able to compete to see which one can get roads to accept their licenses, and if a road accepts your license, then you can generally drive on it, and that sort of thing. So you should, and I think these companies would be fighting really hard to get their standards approved, and ultimately they would have to have the best standards, because you're competing with other companies, and you can't have like terrible standards for getting licenses and still expect road companies to let people who have your type of license on their roads. And ultimately, if road companies don't allow it, then you're going out of business. So I think ultimately that general system for roads and traffic laws and all that sort of stuff would be a better system than the current system we have, and it would work. It would actually function, unlike what most people would expect. So I think that's all I have to say for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.